So we begin to squat.
Like what you see? Lights, camera, action.
Here's your chance to put your voice and talent to
Hi, welcome to Cafe Latino. We're here as every week, and this time will be our second guest has arrived. So, and she is running as me as a school board. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you, Laura, so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
So, can you put a little closer to the microphone? No, just a little tiny. Yeah, thank you very much. Can you tell us your complete name and a little about you? Where did you born? What did you do for a living?
My name is Melanie Turner. I'm running for school board in the Algonquian district in Loudoun County. And currently I am in business development in engineering, so geotechnical engineering.
That's awesome. So, where did you born? You born here in the area?
I lived in Fairfax most of my life. Originally from West Virginia, so a transplant to the area. We currently live in Loudoun County, and I love it.
Yeah, Loudoun we were talking with Jimmy, and it's been growing so much, no? It's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
And I love it. It's so different area. It's just like another beautiful city, just new everything, no?
Yes, there's so much development. We have the metro coming out, so there's so much opportunity for growth in the area. It's been a little bit of a struggle, and I'm sure Jimmy probably talked a little bit about this, about balancing some of our farm conservation in the area.
Yes, totally. I can imagine. So, did you study high school in Loudoun or in Fairfax?
I was in high school in Fairfax. I actually graduated. I went back to West Virginia and graduated high school from there.
And what did you study? In college? You went to college?
Oh, yes. So I started out studying paralegal studies. Thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Yes, I think like most of us, we kind of.
I will tell my story in a minute.
Yeah, zone into that and think that's what we want to do. And as I got older and I got married, then I decided maybe I want to look into psychology. I've always been fascinated with it. So studied biobehavioral health at Penn State, and currently actually working towards a master's at Penn State as well. So
that's amazing. Psychology, I think it's fascinating. I remember when I was in high school, I was studying Freud.
Yes,
yeah.
Freud.
And I was like so fascinated how the behavior of the people, no? But I wanted to be. I never know what I want to be. So I will maybe die. I will never know what I want to be. So I've been doing everything. So I've been doing everything. So I'm an engineer, and then my engineering is I wanted to be study chemistry, and I decided to do engineering. But my engineering is food engineering, processing food. I thought I was fascinated. When I finished, I got bored and I didn't like it, so I did electronics. So I have a master in telecommunications, and then I love sales and marketing. And so you never know where you're going to finish, no?
I absolutely love school. So I think I would go to school forever.
I know. It's not the best ever.
It is. It's exciting to learn new things and to stay current with the trends.
Totally. Do you have kids?
I have 4 kids. I have
4 kids.
I
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I have
You look so pretty. I have 4 kids.
Thank you. I have 2 grown children, 2 out of high school, and I have currently a child in high school and a child in middle school. So I'm very much vested in what's going on in the schools.
And this is why maybe you decide to run for school board?
Absolutely. It's interesting because one of the main things that came up was the diversity policy
Uh-huh.
in Loudoun County, and as I saw more and more complaints online and more of the commentary coming up, I started doing my own research. What's going on in the schools? I had a child who had an IEP, and so I always had an interest in that area.
Uh-huh.
But as I started digging more and more into what was going on in the schools, everything from the budget to special education to this new diversity policy, as a parent, I became more and more concerned. And that was really the driving force
Yeah.
and why I wanted to pursue running for school board.
Yeah. So, I believe that did you notice a difference between your first son that went to school and now your fourth, to say? Did you notice a difference in education?
Absolutely. While I wholeheartedly believe we have some excellent educational programs in Loudoun County, I think we can do more. There's studies that are showing that 22% of kids coming out of high school are prepared for college.
Yes.
So we can do better. And it goes along as something that's come up along the campaign trail has been TJ. As you know, TJ is
The only.
Yeah, it is the premier STEM program here in Fairfax County. So we have a cap of 50 students that are going to be going to TJ, and that was something that was, newly proposed and passed recently. There's a lot of concern about what opportunities are left for our kids in Loudoun if we can only send 50 kids.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. We need more opportunities.
We need more TJ schools around.
Oh, absolutely. We have Loudoun academies. However, there's just such a narrow focus on what opportunities are available for these kids as far as educational programming is concerned. So as a county, I'd like to see us spend more time and more effort into promoting our vocational programming, into advancing our STEM programming, and looking towards the future so that we have more opportunities for the kids. And we have to realize, we have to be realistic, every kid is not going to go to college.
That is reality. Another thing I'm really concerned is when they go to college, they come out and they work like, I see many students that went with my son working as a waitress. I don't say anything bad about working as a waitress, but you spend around $100,000 in college, you have a lot of loans, and you couldn't find a job.
Yeah.
That is another concern. We really prepare our kids first of all to go to college, and then when they're in college, do we prepare them in college to find a job? Or what, it's a lot of
Absolutely. A few years ago, it was such a big thing in the papers about law schools having to pay students who graduated because they couldn't place them in jobs.
Absolutely.
So it is a big concern. If you're going to invest all this time and money into your child's education, you want there to be opportunities. So when we develop programs, we need to look at the areas that are really growing and really expanding and offer more opportunities in those areas like healthcare and
STEM.
And STEM, absolutely.
So let's go back for a moment regarding diversity. So tell me a little bit about what issues are you concerned about this one Fairfax? So what is diversity stuff in London now?
So it's a little bit of a can of worms.
I know. But this is what we hear. We wanted the people listen to us and really, it's around, we cover around 250,000 houses and it's around 10,000 people listen to us. So we wanted to, it is for Fairfax. We know that people work and live in London too, and this is impossible because it goes to Comcast, Verizon and Cox. So please let us know comments about it.
I think one of the main concerns that has come out of this are some of the books that are now available to the students and at a pretty young age. and some of those books have pretty sexually explicit material in
Yes.
them, so that is a huge concern for a lot of parents.
Mm-hmm.
Sexuality in the schools is something that should really be separate, and for years and years we've had FLE, which is
Yes.
the Family Life Education Program, and that has really kind of focused in on issues of sexual maturity
Yes.
and sexual relations and those sort of issues. So that's really one component.
Absolutely.
What this diversity policy has allowed is for that to be introduced into the classroom. I recently spoke with Dr. Eric Williams, who's the superintendent at Loudoun County Public Schools,
Yes.
about this issue. One of my major concerns is that line in the sand where the teachers are talking to children about sexuality. I think as a professional,
Mm-hmm.
as an educator, that's not what you were hired to do. So it's about professional standards.
Absolutely.
Are we going to talk to the kids about our personal problems,
Mm-hmm.
bring our personal problems into the schools for the kids to deal with so many issues today, and kids having depression and anxiety. We're going to put more problems on them. It makes absolutely no sense to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. You know, I'm running for school board here in Fairfax. I was talking with a friend of mine I had not seen him for decades, and I just called her. I said, you know, I'm running for school board. I know the kids had to be grown-ups, and then she said, well, I have a 10-year-old, and you know, I said, yeah, the little one. So yeah, he said, I have to tell you something very important. And in other class of FLE, or they call family life education, and she was like, they call that when they teach in sexuality. They told her that she can select her own sex, so she can be girl or a boy, and she's only 11 years old. And she came home and she was totally depressed. She wants to kill herself, saying that she never knew that she can be a boy, when she still don't know if she's a girl. So she was really confused. I believe that this kind of teaching affect the brain of small kids that are just begin to learn about their own bodies, and while we educating the kids about this kind of behaviors, when we should teach them basic things like how to read, how to do math, that it will be the basics that have to be taught in elementary. So
It's very confusing for the children. And part of the problem, you know, relates back to their autonomy, their sense of self-worth.
yes,
So when you introduce things that are socially complex to someone who is young, who really can't understand
Mhm.
what this means, it's very confusing for them.
yeah,
It's absolutely very confusing for them, and I hear the side of the argument that introducing early helps people to be more understanding of, you know, the different choices that are out there. But I disagree. I think that children, it's very confusing for children. I know with my daughter who's in high school now, it's for her and a lot of her friends who I've talked to, they have complained that they feel like it is to gain popularity. So
yeah,
they don't really understand the ramifications of emotionally or psychologically
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
what that means to make these choices, but they are looking for popularity. Right now, so much is dependent on their self-worth
Mhm.
by being popular. I mean, we probably remember being back in high school where, you know, if you dressed a certain way or you looked a certain way, you were considered popular, or,
yes,
you know, how many friends you had. Well, now today it's so much more complex because we have
Absolutely.
social media
yes,
that really affects kids' self-worth. So now we're just adding more and more components that are more confusing and complex that they just can't understand. So I think that's one of the bigger issues is, are we going to use our children as a social experiment?
exactly. That where we are with that is something really that we have to stop for a moment and
Right.
evaluate and think about what we're doing. No?
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. The school isn't a place for experimentation.
Exactly. No, we cannot use our kids for that, and I think we have to stop that. Is any other issues that you really, besides the diversity, that you wanted to focus in your campaign, or you are focusing in your campaign, and when you become part of the board, is anything that you really would like to work into? Any other thing?
Absolutely. When I sat down with Dr. Williams, one of my concerns with his projections for 2021 was that we had this huge allotment towards salaries and barely a sliver allotted to educational programming growth.
Wow.
So
Can't believe it.
that's very concerning. One of the things that he said over and over again that kind of stuck with me was that he wanted to hire more and more professionals for the different aspects throughout
Yes.
the county. And while that's wonderful in theory, it relates back to, do we really need someone who's specialized in something? And I realize this is somewhat controversial, but when we're not looking at teacher performance.
Wow, exactly. That's something.
So, but, for me, so much has been focused on this diversity issue that I really want every child to be empowered. I want every child to feel like their individuality is their superpower.
Exactly.
So no matter if they have, we have such a prevalence of ADHD and with our children, and autism with our
Yes.
children, that I think we've lost focus on providing the best education that we can, no matter what the child's needs are. So a lot of this new diversity policy focuses on race as well, and really it should be focused on the individual.
Absolutely. I think so we're lucky to have so many kids for so many parts around the world, but at the same time we have a lot of kids here that we needed to focus on. I think we should focus just in the kids' individuality, as you said,
Yeah.
instead of label the kids. It's terrible of the adults to be labeled.
Right. And I mean,
we label our kids since so little. Sorry, but
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
as my heritage is Mexican American, so for me, I've had to deal with the stigma of being Hispanic and being biracial, because my mother is Caucasian, my whole entire life. So either you fit into this category, you don't fit into this category, and really when you're biracial, you don't fit into any category. So it's kind of a bizarre thing. But when
it's
we
not
label,
fair. I didn't know you that you were Mexican American.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
The community needs to know that. There were more than one Latina running for school board.
Absolutely. But it's very important we don't label our children, because
Exactly.
now we are asking them to stay and fit within inside of a box.
Yeah,
And we
that's
should be
crazy.
enforcing creativity. Think outside of that box. Think
Yeah.
beyond the label. And that's where acceptance begins.
That is very, very important. We have a few more minutes. Tell me a little about, I love always to go a little more deeper in the family. Tell me a little about your kid. You have an IP kid. My son couldn't have an IP, neither way he's ADHD in Fairfax, because I never let him fail. You have to let the kid fail totally,
Absolutely.
and then you can apply for IP. So one of the reasons why I'm running is because my husband is from Ohio. He's Caucasian, he's Anglo, and I'm Mexican. I became naturalized 13 years ago. But as an immigrant, I wasn't able to find resources for my own son. I had to pay around $10,000 a year out tutoring for my son to be sure that he finished high school. And and the number of centers for tutoring can increase in so much because Fairfax County don't provide the resources. So tell me a little about your own experience.
I think very young on we realized that our child, and he was more along the autism spectrum.
Okay.
So he had a sensory processing disorder, which affected everything that he did at school. So it was very noticeable once we put him into public schools that he had a hard time dealing with noise and transitions.
Oh,
And a lot of times our child was actually, and I've discovered that this is an issue or has been an issue in Loudoun County that has continued to be an issue, is that kids were getting isolated, which is exactly what happened to my son. He would
Yeah.
either be shoved in a corner with headphones and left alone. He couldn't read. By the end of first grade, we actually took him out of public schools because they just didn't have the resources. Where we were at the time was in Massachusetts, so they just didn't have the resources to accommodate a child with his issues. So we had to put him in Montessori school. But that's great if you have the money. But if you don't have the money,
I just
this
laughing,
is a huge
in
struggle.
parentheses, I'm laughing because my first son had so much trouble at the schools. I was in Alabama. And I was in Alabama. No, I was in Georgia in that time. He had so much trouble. He always was sent into the office, to the direct principal. So I put him in Montessori, and then when I moved to Alabama, I had to keep him in Montessori schools. Thank you that my husband and I worked, because he couldn't stay in a public school because he was always punished for his behavior.
Yeah, absolutely, which is really sad. At one point, what really kind of broke my heart was finding out that my child was sitting in the guidance counselor's office and all alone for most of the day. And I was like, wow, this is not good. This is not good at all. We can't do this. This is not his fault.
Of course.
You know, he had so many issues with textures and colors. He would only wear really soft clothing. He didn't like the textures of feels or so many things with you know, pencils or certain pens. And so there was a lot of issues going on with him, and we really kind of went over and beyond to provide occupational therapy, speech therapy, and just trying the struggle to get the schools to help accommodate some of those needs.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. So I didn't see the time. I got so involved in this. We are almost finishing our show this time. We would like you to tell us where the people can find you in case they wanted to continue this conversation with you, also to support you, because as we know, we need to do a lot of stuff to support our own campaigns. Can you tell us your webpage?
My webpage is Melanie Turner 4th schoolboard.com, and that's the number 4. And I am also on Facebook, so you can reach me on Facebook at Melanie Turner for School Board. I think I'm tagged for Algonquian District, so you can look me up there. I am super responsive to emails and phone calls.
Are you running a large or a district?
Just for the District of Algonquian.
Perfect. But we are going to continue this conversation. I'm sure I will invite Melanie again, because this conversation can take forever. And we will closing just saying that we're here in Cafe Latino, and we are going to continue invite the interview another candidates, and we have wonderful day, but we're coming back in a few minutes.
Action.
Here's your chance to put your voice and talent to use.
What are you waiting for? Your show could be the next big hit.
Get involved. Attend a free orientation.